Tabernacle Township workshop meeting for March 26, 2018. Please stand for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a sunshine notice. This meeting is called pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of March the 26th, 2018 was included in the list of notices sent to the Central Record, Burlington County Times, and Courier Post, posted on the bulletin board in Town Hall, and has remained continuously posted as required notices under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Roll call, Ms. Brown. Mr. Franson.
Here.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Yates. Mayor Barton.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do, before we open it up to the public for comment on agenda items only, we are going to go a little bit out of order, and right after the public comment portion, we do the bills, the minutes. We're going to do Resolution 2018-48, which is the appointment of our municipal judge. So at this time, we'll take public comment on agenda items only. Please come forward. State your name and address, please. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. Stuart Brooks, Moores Meadow Road. I have a comment on the budget. I'm not sure if you're going to open that first reading up to a hearing. If you are, I'll save my comments. If not, I'd like to make them now.
The 23rd will be the public hearing on the budget.
Okay.
April 23rd.
We'll be opening up we'll be taking public comment on the budget today.
We will not be taking public comment on the budget.
Okay. I have one comment then that I'd like to make
Okay,
now on that agenda item. At the last meeting, I commented on a couple line items that seemed large relative to what they were, had been encumbered during the year. One happened to be road salt. Doug and I had a bit of a conversation on that, and the comment that he made that I want to follow up on is the accurate comment that, you know, what's not expended will of course fall to surplus. And the surpluses that we've had over the past 5 years, in 2013 it's 611,000, 2014 just over $1 million, 2015 roughly 650,000, 2016 810,000, 2017 945,000. So my question is, my statement is, sometime in the budgeting process, I'd like to hear a discussion as to how much surplus is the right amount of surplus. Because to over budget, and I'm not saying you're over budgeting or not, but to over budget in order to build surplus strikes me as not a good idea unless you need that much surplus, which gets back to my question, how much surplus do we need? And in past years, I've asked this to Mr. Frenier, and he's always been reluctant to offer an opinion, deferring that to the board in its wisdom. And although I can appreciate his reticence to do it, I don't think it's helpful. Because in your budget comments, the statements made that it was recommended that you increase surplus. I assume that recommendation is coming from Mr. Frenier, but I don't really know. If it isn't coming from Mr. Frenier, who's recommending that you build surplus? And again to the question, to what level should that surplus be? So I'd like to hear some discussion of how much surplus we're shooting for, what's wise and prudent to make sure that we don't over budget with the design of building surplus, because that allows us to have line items that are excessive as opposed to having less of a tax increase. Bottom line, there's no reason to stuff a budget to build unnecessary surplus. Another use of that money is to not raise taxes that much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Anyone else from the public? Mrs. Brooks.
Thank you.
Brooks, Morse Meadow Road. I also have one budget question, and this concerns the $35,000 allocation to the Tabernacle Rescue Squad. As a policy matter, it is very unclear, and I think it would be valuable to clarify why the township continues to make that contribution when those monies can be written off by the squad. There's a process for doing it. The federal government allows it. It's being done in Southampton. It's done in Medford. And so I would ask that you look into that matter, because that's half a penny. I think Mr. Henry said that $66,000 was a penny on our taxes. So that's half a penny that we could recover. And there seems to be, it's a policy issue that you continue to contribute, make that contribution, but it's totally unnecessary, because the squad can do its own accounting of the unfunded balances, and then they can attempt to collect the money. If they can't collect the money, they can write it off, and the feds allow that. So it would really behoove you to look at that as a policy matter and try to save us a few pennies. My second issue, or question that I'd like to raise is, since the period ended for the receipt of resumes for the public safety director and the OEM coordinator, how many resumes you received for each of those positions?
We'll be talking about that under old business.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we're going to go to the portion. Approval of the bills?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Thank you. Mr. Franson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes.
We've got a lot of work to do tonight.
Okay, we're going to approve the minutes of the January 2nd, 2018 executive session, the February 12th, 2018 regular session, and the February 26th, 2018 regular and executive session. And I believe everyone that's present can vote. Have a motion and a second?
I have a document that says Stephen was not here on the 22nd and February 12th.
That's correct.
Okay, so,
How about if I make a motion to approve those 2 minutes and then we'll deal with the February date separately?
okay, so February 12th, we will not be voting on it this time, is that right?
No, we'll vote on it.
You and I can vote.
Yeah, you guys, you have to make the second.
Okay.
Rick is going to make
Two.
the motion to make the second.
You have a quorum, you only need a majority of the quorum to approve the minutes.
Okay, so we'll have to do these in 2 steps.
Yeah,
So the 12th was the one you were not at, Steve?
another 26.
26th?
Rick has made the motion for the 12th and 22nd.
Okay,
You got a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Franson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Abstain.
Thank you. Mayor Barton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll do February 26th.
And I'll make a motion to approve that.
Okay, regular and executive.
This one.
And I'll second that.
Okay, roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Franson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask the Deputy Mayor and our Mayor Emeritus, Rick Franson, and Deputy Mayor Lee to introduce our new judge, Elizabeth County. And I'll let you guys, since you did the interviews, introduce her properly. And then I guess we need a motion first, and then a second, and then I would ask that you introduce her, and then we can vote.
Okay, I'll make a motion for Resolution 2018-48, the appointment of the municipal court judge, Lois County.
I'll second that.
Okay, so under the discussion, do you want to vote on it, then we can do this?
No, we'll go ahead.
Okay, let's do it, okay.
Somebody may want to change the mind.
Yeah, it's all yours.
Mayor Barton had instructed Mr. Franz and I to put together the subcommittee to go through the process of interviewing candidates for the judicial position here in Tabernacle. I will tell you that it was a difficult process because we were replacing an individual that had been with us for 25 years. We were the very first town to make Judge Anarnici a judge and gave him that opportunity. We had the great fortune of not only interviewing some good candidates, but we also recognized Judge Anarnici in his last court He was certainly very taken back by that. It was certainly unexpected. We had a full house of folks that were going to be presented to Judge Henrici, and here we were honoring the judge for his dedication towards Tabernacle. But what it did was, for Rick and I, it made the task of selecting our next judge very, very important, because this is a very small community, and it's a huge responsibility to be in that position, because they're essentially running the court. And I will tell you that I learned an awful lot about the court system here in Tabernacle, as well as in other municipalities. I also was reinforced how strong our court team is, and I use the word team because it's a group participation. Not only do the court staff work together, but the staff downstairs has to work together on court days to be able to balance everything. And a few days ago, we had snow to balance on top of the responsibilities of the court. So we went through the process of interviewing several judges. We had some folks that had never been a judge before that applied. We had roughly, I think, 12 applicants total that we went through. And we went through an interview process. And tonight we're going to present Lois Downey, who comes to us from Morristown, is currently serving in the judicial branch in New Hanover, North Hanover, as well as in Morristown. And I will tell you, my personal thought was that Lois could write a book about preparing for an interview. She was very prepared. She understood the questions. She knew about Tabernacle, because one of the questions we asked all the candidates was, tell us about Tabernacle, and she was able to rattle it off relatively fast, which was very, very impressive. I think we're in a very good place in terms of the transition. We're very much looking forward to for the next phase of court here in Tabernacle, and we're very, very excited to recommend to the committee that we appoint Lois Downey as our new judge here in Tabernacle, effective April the 1st. Mr. Francis?
You did a very fine job of summarizing it, and I would, just add to that, we think we made a very good choice. Ms. Downey is, as Stephen said, did quite well, and really, I think, impressed us, as Stephen said, with her knowledge of Tabernacle. She could tell you right away how many square miles are in town. She didn't have the miles and the number of all the roadways. I don't think any of us know that. But I mean, just some of the stuff she prepared for was pretty cool. And she said she wanted to ride around the town and see what it's like should she get this job. She just doesn't want to come into this building and start being a judge. She wants to see the town and get to know the town and know the people a little bit. So I mean, when you interview someone and they talk like that about their job and what they're going to do, and in that respect, you really get a warm feeling. And I think we're going to be very, very happy with Judge Downey.
Okay, let's have a roll call, and then we will introduce our new judge.
Thank you. Mr. Franson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Lois, would you like to stay?
Thank you. I just wanted to
Congratulations.
thank all of you for your trust.
Congratulations.
I really do appreciate the appointment. I say hello to everybody here in the room, and I just want to let you know that my judicial philosophy is respect and accountability. So may I never see any of your faces in the courtroom here. This is the best way to actually get to see and meet and greet. But again, I thank you so much for your trust. And I will endeavor to be a hardworking public servant for your town and for all your residents.
Thank you.
So, and with that, I will leave you to do your work of government. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations.
Lois, when you come back, the chairs will be facing that way.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, the municipal budget presentation. Do we need to discuss it any further?
I think so. Got a lot of.
Okay, so Resolution 2018-46, we're going to introduce the municipal budget. The public hearing will be on April 23rd, 2018 at 7:30. And Doug, will Mr. Frenier, our representative for this?
They will be here for the public hearing, and also point out there's one minor change in the budget from last month, is that we have a line item for the Gypsy Moss spraying town share of $5,000, and that was transferred from capital fund project, which went from 75 to 70.
Okay.
Will
Thank you.
remain the same.
Thank you. Okay, so do we have a motion for Resolution 2018-46?
So moved with a public hearing on the 23rd at 7:30.
Second. Yep,
Okay,
second.
roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Franzen.
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes. Okay, also we have first reading of ordinance 2018-1, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank pursuant to NJSA 40A:45.14. Public hearing being 4/23/2018 at 7:30 p.m.
I'll make the motion for the first reading, 2018-1.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mayor Barton, thank you, excuse me.
Okay. Also, tonight, we have a first reading of ordinance 2018-2, an ordinance of the Township of Tabernacle amending Chapter 4, general licensing of the revised Township Code of Ordinance with respect to bingo and raffle license. And with this ordinance, will provide the Madam Clerk to approve all bingo and raffle licenses so that they will not have to be dealt with in the public session in the public meeting. Do a roll call? Or a
I'll make the motion for 2018-2, the first reading for the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Okay, resolution 2018-47, which is a refund of overpayment for vacant abandoned registration fee. I believe that was $500.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Have a motion?
I'll make it.
Second.
Okay. Roll call?
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Okay, and we already dealt with resolution 2018-48, which is a municipal judge, under old business, and then also under old business, Megan Yates is not here, but I'll ask the deputy mayor if she would like to report on public safety director and the position of OEM position. Deputy mayor, before you do, Doug was going to report under his report that he did talk to Colonel Lowe, and Colonel Lowe agreed to tenure his retirement until the new OEM coordinator is in place. So thank you, Colonel Lowe, for that. He'll continue on the job until that time.
Okay. Mr. Yates and I met by conference call this week, and we've received roughly for the, we'll kind of do it in two sections here. In terms of the OEM coordinator, we have received some resumes, and we thought it might be good to do another advertising for a 2-week period perhaps, and in light of opportunity for Mr. Lowe to continue and until that person's appointed, we're requesting the committee to re-advertise. We have 2 good candidates thus far, but because the position was advertised during a period of time where a lot of the OEMs are busy with snow, et cetera, I think some folks that wanted to get a resume in maybe perhaps did not. So we would like to go ahead and do another re-advertising for that particular position, if it pleases the committee.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether you want to do a motion for that or not, but
Okay.
I'll be happy to make that if that's the case.
Okay, you want to do that?
Absolutely. I'll ask consideration for the committee for a motion to re-advertise for the position of emergency management coordinator for Tabernacle.
Okay.
Second.
Second, Rick, okay. So, LaShawn, when would you be able to get an advertisement in the paper? Would it be able to be this Friday?
I can make Friday,
Okay, is that
Friday.
fine? And we're within 2 weeks after that?
about 2 weeks after.
Return by noon, 2 weeks later?
Where does that actually put us? Take this from
Yeah, take a look at the calendar first.
We just kind of talked about 2 weeks, but we don't have to, we can go
Okay,
through.
do it.
We are going to interview the 2 candidates that we have thus far
Mhm.
as a courtesy to them, so they've already submitted to the previous deadline, so out of courtesy to them, we are going to interview them.
Are you going to shoot for the
23rd meeting.
23rd meeting to make a recommendation?
We have a lot of public hearings that night. We just did 3 public hearings.
So if we advertise here, this is 2 weeks, is the 13th.
Yeah.
Would we be able to make a recommendation by the 23rd?
We probably could. Do you want to do it that night? You've got You've got a budget hearing, and
I think the next
Towards
meeting is in May, it's not till the end of May.
that's right. Yeah, we went down late.
Yeah, it's a week ago. I mean, I don't know that we have to advertise 2 weeks. I mean, it's been out there already, right? That we want to do like,
I mean, if you want a recommendation by the 23rd, we'll make it happen, and we'll do 2 weeks.
okay,
That's fine.
Do you want to have them in by the 10th, so you have a little more time?
yeah.
Um,
That's
That only leaves you, no, that's less than 2 weeks.
yes.
2 weeks from tonight, that's,
If you go in on
Almost
the
two.
30th.
let's go with the 13th.
Okay.
Let's go all all, yeah,
13th gives you almost 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go until Friday.
right.
We'll give you 2
So we'll do 13.
We'll put it back up on the website right away.
Yeah.
Okay, you got that, LaShawn? Okay. And we'll try to get it done and recommend it for the 23rd.
Okay.
Roll call?
Thank you. Mr. Franson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. So we'll continue with public
Okay,
safety.
in terms of the public safety director, we have approximately 15 applicants, and I might even be low on that number. We have a lot of applicants that not only are from Tabernacle, but also from outside of Tabernacle, but for the most part, they're all Burlington County residents. I think there might be one that's not. But I will tell you that this process is it's going to be a lot more difficult than I thought. And the reason for that is because a lot of the applicants, almost all the applicants are very qualified. And I'm very, very pleased that we had such a great response to this particular position. I'd heard through the grapevine, no one will ever apply, blah, blah, blah. I will tell you that the person that we appoint in this position will absolutely be more than qualified, and we will certainly be served well by this individual. And I don't even know who the individual is going to be yet, but I do know we have a great pool to pick from. So Mayor Yates and I, Deputy Mayor Yates, whatever his name is, Joe and I are gonna plan to meet the week after Easter and begin to get interviews scheduled. But we have a lot to pick from, and we've got some great candidates to pick from. So that's all I got.
Okay.
More to come.
Thank you, and to Joe for the effort.
He would have been here tonight, but he's sick. He's had I talked to him this morning about 6:30. He sounded awful, and he sounded worse at 4:30. So I'm glad he's not here, actually.
I asked him not to share his terms.
I'm glad, I appreciate that.
Okay. We're going to do reports. Dan Guzzi, our Township Engineer.
Just a couple quick things. The communication towers for the ESB building are out to bid, and we'll be receiving them in April 19th. And we're continuing to work with Doug on developing some recommendations for the road program.
Okay.
I'm getting notes from the clerk.
Okay. Well, we'll give you a break so you read. Mr. Terry, did you have any comments?
Yeah, we had gotten this resolution from the auditor tonight, and we actually realized that we're under self-review, which means we don't have to send the budget up to the state for review, but we have to pass a resolution saying that we're under self-review.
Okay, and I have a copy of that. Do we have to do that tonight, or?
Yes.
Okay, so, Sean, can you assign a number?
That's actually going to be 2018-49. Unfortunately, I don't have any copies for the public. If the public wants copies, they can obtain them tomorrow. I have them on the website as well.
49, LaShawn?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to need a motion for Resolution 2018-49, which is a self-examination of the budget as required by the Department of Community Affairs, whereas NJSA 40A:4-2 78B has authorized the local finance board to adopt rules that permit municipalities in sound fiscal condition to assume the responsibility normally granted to the Director of Division of Local Government Services of conducting the annual budget. And whereas NJAC 5:30-7 was adopted by the local finance board on February 11, 1997. A motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mayor Barton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Terry, for bringing that to our attention.
And that happens every other year.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Kramer, our Township Administrator.
Okay, just a reminder to the committee that on Wednesday, March 28th, at Connors in East Hampton, we have the elected officials training for EPL and ethics. So it starts at 5, sign-in starts at 5:30, the seminar starts at 6, it'll be from 6 to 8. We do get a credit for each committeeman who attends for $250 credit off of our NEL assessment. So just a reminder of that. Also, as you all know, we've been hit by another nor'easters that have brought a lot of branches down and some trees down, so we expect our brush collection, which starts on the 2nd, to be a little larger than normal and a little longer in each section. So I ask the public to be patient with us as the weeks go on. We maybe fall a little bit behind.
Speaking of, sorry, Doug, go ahead.
We will be out there and try to pick up as much as we can, which will fit in the chipper. We ask the residents to keep within the guidelines that are published on our website, but we will try to get as much up as we can in a timely fashion.
I came up Crayons the other night for the meeting, and Crayons is an absolute mess in terms of trees down, to the point where there's trees over 3/4 of the road. But it's on the dirt part before you get to the railroad tracks.
Okay.
Can you just reach out to the state and let them know the condition of that road? I imagine the park police may have already done that, but they may not have.
Okay.
I just want to make sure the bases are covered.
I'll call the warden down
That's still?
That's the,
Okay.
that's the, or
It's
That's
it's dangerous. It's not even funny. There are probably 50 trees between just the railroad tracks and Friendship.
Is there?
That are down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we've done up to the unit, cleared up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
The paved part is not, I think it's fine the way that, there might be one or two that's between the tracks and at the bridge, but that's, before you get there, it's just an absolute mess. I mean, and dangerous.
I will call them and alert them to that.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Do you want to talk about, as your Public Works Director, the effort that you had this past week with the amount of trees that were down? This was the 3rd storm in 2.5 weeks, Doug, we had to deal with. They call this one Storm Toby.
We arrived on, actually on Tuesday morning. Part of my department participated in rescue that was happening out on 532 before they came, and then we started in, and we dealt with the number of trees and that during the storm over the next 2 days. We did salt a couple times on Tuesday night, and then we plowed off all the ice on Wednesday morning, and then started again.
Why do you make us remember all this?
Because he was here.
He doesn't know what day it
He
is.
lived it.
So, I can't, our crews stayed through. We did sleep here for a few hours each night, but with the help of B&B Landscaping, they did a very good job for us. They were with us most of the time. We did send them home the first night, and brought them back in early in the morning, and then on the second night, they went back to their shop for a number of hours, and then came back and we started at midnight and started plowing. But we had probably about 85% of our roads plowed by the time 7 o'clock came around, and we're finishing up some of our side streets and dealing with the streets with the trees down. We about ran all that, and then most of the following that Thursday, Wednesday evening, we cut trees up, and then we plowed some of the sections that we couldn't get around. So at the time when we left Thursday night, we had 2 roads that were blocked with trees and wires. One was a portion of Butterworth Boggs Road and Carranza Road between here and Moore's Meadow. We had a rather large tree that was into a primary and then also laying on the telephone wires. Once Langston Electric cleared that, we were back up today, cleaning up a little bit more on Moore's Meadow and Little Crane, so we still got a little bit more to do on coatings. So.
Thank you, Doug. Our council solicitor, Mr. Lane.
Mayor, I did want to mention that it seems the law is a little more settled on the rental property ordinance issue. And basically, if in fact the township is going to regulate that and charge a fee, there's a necessity that there be an annual inspection. So I think it's Tom's desire to perform those inspections. I guess I'm probably catching Doug a little by surprise, but he's aware of the issue, and we have had some discussions. I really asked permission of the committee to talk to Tom about his bandwidth, what his willingness, or not willingness, but so much his ability and the value that he sees in making those inspections. If we're not going to modify the ordinance slightly to require it annually and to include it in his duties, then we need to modify it and reflect the current state of the law, which would really prevent you from collecting such a fee. So I suspect that the committee's desire is to conduct those inspections on an annual basis. There's a plethora of reasons to do so, which is what led to the ordinance in itself in the first place. But we would have to be committed to making an annual inspection. So if the committee wants to give me that direction, then I can talk to Tom, I can talk to Doug, and we can conform the ordinance in that regard.
Peter, if I remember, we did pass a rental inspection ordinance, right? With a fee attached to it. And then we withdrew that because it was a court case. It had to do with, I think, Hamilton Township.
Yep.
So are you saying that we could have that ordinance if the fee is collected and an inspection is absolutely done?
And the fees are rationally related to the cost of the inspection, so yes.
Is this abandoned or
Rentals.
Okay. So the abandoned home
It's a different issue.
different issue and that's not resolved.
Correct.
Rick, what's your thoughts?
I think it's worth taking a look at, sure.
Okay.
And Peter do some looking at it and
Yeah, Stephen?
discussing it
Okay.
amongst ourselves.
Doug? No, what's your thoughts?
Staffing is time and staffing will be an issue on that. But,
Okay.
we'll have to talk to Tom and see whether he can fit. If it's only one inspection a year, that's different than a monthly inspection and that kind of stuff. So
See how many we have, that kind of.
Yeah.
we'll have to look at his time and what he can fit in his
Okay,
schedule.
and then, Peter, if I remember, the fee has to reflect our actual cost, right?
It has to be roughly equated to.
Okay, so when you talk with Tom, we'll have to get an idea of what his time is, any employee's time associated with that inspection, so that we could come up with a fair fee.
Yep. So I would take that analysis, talk to Doug and Tom, and come back to the committee.
Okay. Okay, what it does, as a township, it gives us the opportunity to have a construction official visit every rental property, whether it's a house, a duplex. I think we do have a couple of duplexes, and I think we even have a quadplex, I think, somewhere. And make sure that the landlord is keeping them up to code from a public safety perspective, that, the smoke detectors, everything's working, that the appliances are right, that the electric's right, the gas, if it's gas, that everything's proper and up to code for the safety of the resident.
And zoning and use issues would be examined at that time too.
Yeah.
Occupancy issues.
Yeah, okay. So I look at it as it's a safety issue. It provides us an opportunity to protect the tenant, to make sure the tenant is in a dwelling that is maintained to code. And God forbid, if there is an incident and EMS or fire or rescue have to visit, then at least we have the comfort of knowing that it's been inspected and it is up to code. Okay,
Thank you.
anything else, Peter?
That's all I have tonight.
Township Committee, Mr. Franzen?
Again, I want to just thank the Public Works Department and everybody else involved, the fire company, the rescue squad, and the landscaper for taking care of us during the storm. And it's well appreciated by not only myself, but my neighbors. We always are in awe at how well things are taken care of when there's storms here in town. And that's all I got.
Deputy Mayor?
Mayor, I'm going to ask consideration for an executive session after our conclusion meeting this evening, or not conclusion, but an executive session. An executive session for about 5 minutes to discuss potential shared services with neighboring municipalities.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm just glad that we had the process we went through to find Judge Downey. I just want to thank Rick for his help in putting that together. It was certainly a good experience. I'm looking forward to the upcoming interviews for both OEM and also public safety. Right? That's all I have.
And I thank both of you for taking immediate action and expediting that process so we could have her confirmed tonight before April 1st, when she needs to sit in court with Judge Adamisi's retirement. And I also thank the Deputy Mayor and former Mayor Franzen for accompanying me in Judge Adamisi's court last week, his last day in court, presenting him a proclamation. As the Deputy Mayor said, he was quite taken back. So thank you for that also. One thing I want to report is that, with Storm Toby, I usually with the storms visit the OEM office, the EMS, and the fire company, and they were fully deployed and engaged and actively making our community safe with wires and trees down. There's cones areas, blocked areas. We did have residents out as late as Saturday. I saw bucket trucks from surrounding states, from other utilities in Tabernacle on Saturday, and everybody was restored, I believe. The outages affected different people at different times. Not everybody was out from Tuesday all the way to Saturday. There were outages that came as trees toppled even days later. Even my property, I had several trees go into the roadway. One the first day, and then 2 days later, 2 others went down. So it was a unique storm. They had that heavy wet snow, and it got on the pine trees, and they were the ground was saturated. So the ones that didn't snap just toppled over, and we're a community of many trees. So thank you. Thank God we get through all that safely without anyone getting injured. Also, on Saturday, I went to the robotics competition at Seneca High School, and Bob Stunbury is with us. And Bob, I'm going to ask you to stand up and tell the audience, come on up here, and tell them about this competition. I actually get a kick out of going to this robotics competition to see the kids and the kids in the audience, not just the kids on the team, but the kids in the audience. If you watch them, how much fun they have. I mean, it's like going to a very unusual event. I've been, I've been to many athletic events, but I've never seen the excitement that you see at the robotics. Would you mind taking a few minutes and tell us how our team did?
Well, for the record, this is
Bob Stunbury over on Sleepy Hollow Drive here in Tabernacle, and I was a robot inspector this weekend. Seneca High School and our robotics team hosted roughly 37 teams from schools throughout New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and maybe even New York. And these kids start out, they spend about 6 days a week after school and on Saturdays. And they have about 6 weeks to design and build a robot from scratch. So this year they had a really fun, kind of a 16-bit arcade game theory where they had to pick up power cubes and take over different scales located on a field and put them in chutes to get all kinds of power-ups and such. And the teams, each team has their own colors, their own spirit. They have an entire pit area. So just like at your NASCAR races and stuff, there's pits. So every crew has their own pit, and some of the pits were actually designed like arcade games with Pac-Man going in there, different old arcade-style video games, and the enthusiasm of the kids, and the engineering expertise, planning, design, implementation, testing, going back, starting all over again. Our team got a great Spirit Award this week. Some of you saw that posted on Facebook. And so we weren't the top of the competition because this was our first week competing. Other teams have 2 and 3 competitions behind them, but we'll be at Hatboro Horsham this weekend for our second competition, going Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, off for Easter. But it was a great time, and we've been successful with this for many years now. And it's a big drawing of the community. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bob. Bob's also a member of our search group. Okay, public comment. Mrs. Brooks?
Fran Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. I was wondering if Deputy Mayor Reed was able to speak with Shamong regarding the Ransom Road paving project.
Mr. Kramer is in the process of scheduling that meeting with Chemung Township, and we're hoping that if we were to use our grant to pave both sides of the road for a portion this year, we're hoping that they'll be able to use that grant next year and that we can get this project forward. I would hope by our next meeting that we could report better, Fran, what type of commitment we have from Chemung.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. The other question I have is for Mr. Guzzi, since your Guzzi team was out sometime last week, marking the road from the point at which the pavement ends to Morris Meadow. What was that about?
On Carranza. We had started in anticipation that some of that, at least a portion of Carranza Road will be paved this year because we do have the grant money. Talking to Mr. Kramer, we thought it was a good idea to get started on doing the survey portion, which means we're measuring up the road and surveying it so that once a decision is made on how far and how much we're going to do, we can move forward quicker and hopefully get a chunk of it done this summer.
Okay, so something that I don't really understand, and maybe you can help me understand it better, is what's the distance that would be covered by mileage, from a mileage standpoint, would be covered by that 265,000?
I don't have the number in front of me now. I think we talked about this before, and maybe it's a third of the road. I think maybe about a third of that from the distance from Morris Meadow to heading back into town where Tuckerton would come in.
Okay, so you would really be doing 2 chunks, one chunk of that, 1/3 of the road.
If we just did the grant, it would be about 1/3 of the road, and I'm not sure which end we would start at. That would be committee's decision.
Okay.
But presumably we wouldn't start in the middle. We would start at one end.
Right, yeah, that wouldn't make any sense. And so when the markings that go from the end of the pavement to Moore's Meadow is simply an indication of what? If you're only doing 1/3 of the road, what do those markings actually mean?
Well, I'm only guessing what you're talking about with the markings. What we do is we station the road. So we'll put painted dots maybe every 50 feet down the road to establish stations, and then we shoot the elevations at those at those stations in order to come up with a base plan for paving.
Oh, okay, so when we see the mark with the number on it, what, does that number mean anything? Does it have any significance?
Well, it would depend on the number that you're talking about, but in
Well, Morse
essence,
Meadow, it's one, I think.
a lot of times we'll station on a 50-foot station, so every 50 feet there'll be a mark, and then there'll be a number representing the number of feet, 50, 100, 150, that type of thing.
Okay.
So I'm not sure exactly what number you're looking at, because there's other things that they mark when they're doing it. Sometimes they're just traverse points. In other words, it's just a point where we set up and put a pin in the ground in order to be able to, because you can't survey from one end, looking through the transit all the way to the other end, so you have traverse points as you go. Sometimes they put numbers there to identify which traverse point that is. So unless I know exactly what numbers you're talking about, I can't tell you. But
Well, we don't have to get into
those are a
the weeds
couple
on
for
that.
instances.
Yeah, well, no, it's important, because road building is actually really important and very interesting if you can get into it, and I guess I'm getting into it, so I appreciate that explanation, and I think that's it. And I hope we hear something next, at the next meeting about what's going on with Shimon and contribution that hopefully they will make to the road. Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else in the public? Okay. No one? Name and address?
Bob Sunbury, 33 Sleepy Hollow here in town. I just wanted to let the committee know, for their benefit in terms of the decision-making in reference to the emergency management coordinator, there's an opportunity beginning April 30th through May 4th at the New Jersey Emergency Preparedness Conference. So whomever you bring in to that position can get their 24 hours of training down at that conference, because within the first year they're required to pick up their emergency manager training. So just in terms of your time frame and stuff, it looks like you're shooting to get ahead of that. So that'll be a great opportunity for whoever goes in there.
Okay, well, thanks, Bob. I'll talk to Rashawn afterwards, and we will get a reservation in under Tabernacle Township with the hopes that that coordinator will go to the NJBC, which I've gone to every year since it started.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
You're very welcome.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, we're going to close the public portion, and a motion to go into executive session to discuss shared services with neighboring communities.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Thank you. Mr. Franson?
Yes.
Mr. Nicky?
Yes.
Mayor Parton?
Yes. Thank you. We're adjourned until after the executive session.
We have a snowplow problem. We have a snowplow problem.
Man, did you see that?
Here,